I am Jimenez. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I have conducted hundreds of webinars and seminars on mental health for seafarers. And right now I'm going to talk to you about charting a course to crew safety and mental wellness, enhancing resilience at sea. If I'm going to ask you right now, what do you feel? How are you going to respond? Ask your seatmate, what do you feel right now? Go ahead. What do you feel? Some of you are feeling happy, some of you are feeling sad. And yes, some of you are feeling hungry, and some of you may be feeling sleepy right now, and that's just fine. So remember that all of us here, if there's something that binds all of us, it's that one thing. That's our emotions. And I would like you to think about the happiest moment in your life right now. What's that happiest moment? Remember the first time you tied your shoelaces? For seafarers, remember the first time you embarked on a journey? We all have our happy moments. But I would also like to ask each one of you right now to recall, what is that saddest moment in your life? Remember the first time you said goodbye to your kindergarten teacher? Remember the first time you were saying goodbye to your favorite pet dog, pet cat, pet lizard? Sad moments indeed. Seafarers experience sadness, just like any one of us here. And sadness, that's something that we manage. But if we are not able to manage our sadness, it will become what? It will become worse. And it will become depression. So I would like to talk about depression. And here, there are 300 million people who suffer from depression worldwide. As I speak right now, according to the World Health Organization, some 300 million people suffer from depression worldwide. And among these 300 million people who suffer from depression worldwide, what will happen if we are not able to manage our depression? So this is sadness. And when you are not going to manage your sadness, it becomes depression. And when somebody is not going to be able to handle the depression, it will lead to suicide. As I speak right now, somewhere, somehow, someone is engaging in suicide. After 40 seconds, somebody else is going to engage in suicide. After another 40 seconds, somebody else is going to die by suicide. One person died by suicide every 40 seconds. And 5 to 18% of deaths at sea in 2022 were linked to suicide. In a study conducted by International Maritime Charity Sailors Society at Yale University, UK, they have discovered that 26% of seafarers show signs of depression. What does this mean? It means that for every 1, 2, 3, 4 seafarers, there's one seafarer who shows signs of depression. And 45% of them won't ask for help. Only 33% will talk to family and friends. And only a mere 21% will talk to colleagues. Many experience depression, and yet they are not talking about it. And this is not just happening in the maritime industry, it's happening worldwide. So our goal is to talk about it. And it has also been studied that among these seafarers, 20% contemplated suicide or self-harm. So, quite a figure. Now, is depression related to work? Yes. Depression is related to productivity. Why? Studies have shown that if you have an increase in your depression score, it will lead to productivity loss. Studies have shown that if you have an increase in depression, it will lead to impaired performance. But the thing here is this one. Is depression related to safety? That's a very important question. Is mental health related to safety? According to Lefkowitz, the answer is yes. Why? Because seafarers with depression had more than twice the likelihood of a work injury. According to Lefkowitz, in his study, he said that seafarers with anxiety had twice the likelihood of a work injury. Hence, we conclude that depression and anxiety are connected to diminished safety, which means that poor mental health is a major factor in productivity, in performance, and above all, safety. But why do seafarers experience these mental health conditions? Are there reasons why? Well, yes. there are many stressors in the lives among seafarers. I have heard thousands of narratives from my participants. And based on study as well, what are these stressors? Number one, stressors which are ship-related. Overwork, lots of port calls, only person from a certain country on board, only female on board, no shore leave. But aside from the stressor from the ship, there is a stressor from people on board. Blame culture, bullying, bossy captain, discrimination, falling out with colleagues, falling out with superiors, and sexual harassment and sexual assault. But more than that, there are home-related stressors that seafarers always have to deal with, like bad news, like having a death in the family or ending relationships, falling in and out of love, and financial difficulties. And one thing more, health and well-being. Seafarers experience different kinds of emotions. They have fear of the bad weather. Aside from the fear of the bad weather, they have a sense of boredom. And sometimes they experience seasickness. Some of them will say that I feel tired, I feel unwell. So if you're going to combine all of these 1, 2, 3, 4 stressors at the same time, you have a seafarer here who's vulnerable to mental health problems. And perhaps that's the reason why there are many seafarers right now who said, I will not recommend this profession to my son, to my daughter, because it's too stressful. However, it's very important for us to know that despite the stressors that seafarers experience, they have good stories. They have, narratives. And seafarers say that in order for you to somehow grapple with these kinds of stressors, you have to have psychological resilience. And what is psychological resilience? When we talk about psychological resilience, we talk about gut work. Well, this is the ability to, resilience is the ability to bounce back despite the adversities, the uncertainties, the complexities, the conflicts, the failures, and even the progression. Despite all of these stressors, seafarers are always able to bounce back. I was listening to the stories, and I know that you have lots of struggles, but I also admire you, and I look up to you, because you were able to surpass all of those challenges through those years. And because of these adversities and positive changes, eventually you developed resilience. So when we talk about resilience, there are 3 things I would like all of you to remember. All of you here inside this room, you have problems in your lives. I would like you to think about what is the biggest major problem you had 10 years ago. 10 years ago, what's the biggest problem? You cannot recall. Why? Because you were resilient and you were able to surpass that. I would like you to remember what was that problem you had 5 years ago and you told yourself, I give up, I surrender. And yet you're here. You're strong, you're resilient, unyielding. Why? Because of the 3 components of resilience. Number 1, I am. You have the ability to face struggles. Number 2, I have. You have the support system with you. When you were down, you talked to someone, well, that someone did not solve your problem perhaps, but even though the problem was not solved, you felt good, you felt lighter later on after talking to that person, and it helped you to move through the obstacle. So it's I am, I have, and your ability to tell yourselves, I can do it. So, we want a psychologically resilient generation of seafarers. We have to hold the classic Goldberg 3 components. I am. We have to tell them, hey, you have to believe in yourselves. You have your personal abilities. We have to explore that. And aside from that, we as an industry must give the proper resources to them, so that in the end, they will face the problem as a challenge, they will be committed, and they will find things that they can control in life. And in the maritime industry, there are 2 things. Some things we can control, some things we cannot. For those things that we cannot control, we accept it. But for those that we can control, That's where the I can enters the picture. So, how do we develop the I am? You have to know your physical abilities. And you have to know the psychological trainings that need to be undergone. In terms of I have, companies, industry may provide counseling and therapy digital tools. There are so many tools right now on the internet and apps as well in order to promote mental health, and I would highly recommend mindfulness training. Aside from mindfulness training, there are chatbots right now, and studies have shown that chatbots are also working well and effectively. You talk to the bot, and then there's a response, and then you're able to engage and talk about your emotions and reduce the overwhelming anxiety or even anger that you feel at a certain point in time. The last one, I can. Psychoeducation and self-efficacy and problem-solving skills. Whether that's a problem related to ship, a problem related to home, a problem related to the self, a problem related to people on board. We need a generation of seafarers who will have that depth in managing these kinds of stressors that I have made mention earlier. And so, in order to form psychological resilience, we have to have the I am, I have, and I can. So that the poor mental health will become mental well-being, and the productivity loss will become improved productivity, and the impaired performance becomes better performance. And finally, the diminished safety becomes enhanced safety. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening.